What is my next challenge in daring to be human?
How do I connect with life?
How can I let go of my need for fixed answers in favor of aliveness?
How do I live free from the experiences that shaped me?
How can we be the change the world needs right now?
Join us weekly for stony conversations about life.
It is our mission to allow life itself to reveal to us the answers. Welcome to Chasing Thoughts.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Chasing Thoughts. It is almost the end of June. It's summer. I'm always so surprised how fast summer goes. When I found out it was the end of June today, like in my head, when I realized it, I'm like, oh shit. We're just flying right along.
Yeah, for some reason, winter just feels longer for some,
Yes.
like it's just weird.
Yeah, it totally does. So yeah, summer's going very quickly.
Yeah. Are you
How is
enjoying it?
Am I what?
Are you enjoying it?
Yes and no. So I prefer winter. I really love winter. And so I'm one of those people that's like counting down the days to fall.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I like summer and I love my gardening and I love being able to go for hikes. But what I'm realizing more and more as I get older is I need a lot of downtime and slow time and empty time. And it never fails that summer seems busier, right? There's more like barbecues and parties and weddings and people. And so it's kind of exhausting for me. And when fall comes and I know that my weekends are just going to be like sitting on the couch reading my book while my husband watches football, I'm like, oh, like I just feel the rest in that, right? I'm a very
Yeah.
homebody, quiet person. And so while I love summer, it's often a little intense for my personality.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting. Yeah. Sandy's the same way. Like she would rather it would rather be like winter for her. She just loves winter.
Yeah, I love being cozy and, sitting and reading with a cup of tea in my book. Like that's a dream afternoon for me,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah.
And I know it's not that way for other people. And it's funny because, the group of friends I'm a part of here locally, they're going to concerts and shows and like something every night and doing it. And it sounds like fun theoretically.
Right.
But I think over the years, I've finally just accepted, oh, it sounds like fun in the way that like being a fighter pilot sounds like fun. Like it is not reality for me.
Right.
you know, I wish I was that kind of person sometimes, but I'm not. So
Nice. Yeah, I like getting out. I think I like the summer better just because getting out into nature has become so important for me because
uh,
I'm a homebody too, and it's very easy for me to get locked in.
yeah. Wouldn't it be
And
so cool, sorry about that, to have like a little courtyard or like a cool little indoor outdoor space in your house?
yeah,
I would
yeah,
love
like
that.
yeah, like where is it? Like in I think like South America, they have those houses that are like built and there's like a square in the middle. Even down in Louisiana, they have something like that. Like, why don't we do that? It would be so awesome.
Yeah, I would love that. Yeah, so how was your week? Did you learn? Did you stretch? What was it like for you this week?
Yeah, I'm really getting into this idea of I really like connect with the idea of creation. So how we talked about last time, like looking at our life through the lens of like art, for some reason that word
Yes.
holds more power for me than just the word art.
Hmm.
And that got me thinking to just how important our words are.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
and really like the intention behind the word. So, because I think there's more intention for me behind the word creation than there is than behind the word art.
Yeah. For me, I think the word art is more powerful, and particularly because it's something I've always told myself I wasn't good at or didn't have time
Mhm.
for, or right, like using that word to me means that I'm really gonna have to break some barriers inside myself, right? And so like I feel the power in that word art for me. But
Yeah.
we mean the same thing, right? It's just different language for us.
Yeah. And it's so cool too, because it shows exactly, I mean, how aligned we are, but also the differences in us, you know? So like when you were saying the word art, it sort of motivates you to break through those barriers. When I go to creation, when you were saying that, I was like, for me, creation moves me beyond those barriers. So like art, I would see those barriers and I'm like, nope, I don't want to deal with them. So creation, I'm like, boom, I just teleport to the other side, you know? And I'm
Yeah,
like, I'm
so
good to go
cool.
now, you
Yeah.
know? So that's just so cool, man.
Yeah, I actually changed my profile on Instagram and now it says digital artist, content creator, coach, media, right? Like I
Oh, I
added
love
new
that.
new titles into my what do they call that? It's called, I think the word is Eureka. I don't know if I'm saying it right, but that's the sort of paragraph that comes after your name, like Daenerys, Mother of Dragons, Queen of the Seven Seas, right? What's your little, titles that come after your name?
Yeah, yeah. Oh, dude, we should like make those up. That'd be
I know
pretty
it's
cool,
fun,
man.
huh?
Start using those again. Yeah. Keith, eater of Cheetos.
Right. Yeah, there's a woman, I'll put her link in the show notes, who works with people on building their unique eurekis or what, I'm not sure if I'm saying the word right, but she's a coach and she wrote a book called The Professional Troublemaker, which I love. So
Nice.
I'll put her information down below.
That's very cool. That sounds like a good book.
Yeah, yeah, it is. Um, I also experienced some hardship this week that I wanted to bring up and talk about because it was a big deal for me. Um, I had to let a client go because they were experiencing things that was beyond what I'm professionally trained for. And it brought up so much stuff for me because it was a beautiful woman who was in an emotionally abusive relationship, or from what I heard, that was my result, right? And something that I wasn't able to heal or fix. But going through the process for me was really interesting because, I myself have been in those situations, right? I was raised by somebody who did a lot of like gaslighting and emotionally abuse. And then my husband was that. And then I got out of it. And then to get to know this person and then have to leave them and abandon them. And it just brought up so much stuff for me. And it really made me think about how healing or how everything is like just a circle, right? We're just going around and so many things that I hadn't felt or experienced in so long were like re-brought up and activated for me to look at and heal deeper. And just, man, it really is a never-ending process of integration and growth, and how beautiful that experience can be.
Yeah. I mean, we are never static. You know, we are constantly moving, constantly growing. We want that, you know, our bodies want homeostasis. It wants that balance, but the balance is fake because we can't stop moving, you know,
Yeah.
and it just shows how we keep going. I love there's a lot of indigenous groups that see time as a circle instead of like we kind of see it as this linear thing, and they see time as a circle. So what was will become again, and what, you know, will be will again move into the past, you know. Um, and that's the same thing with our emotional and spiritual journeys.
Yeah. Yeah, and this is a really kind of weird out there thought, but I was thinking about it a lot lately, like that the the moment of full expansion, right? Like when you feel the most what would be a good word for it? Like exquisite, right? You're like, it's the moment of expansion in anything, is the same moment as full contraction, right? Like it's because it's going big and small and the waves, right? So you're expanding and shrinking and expanding and shrinking. And I think some people do it on really big levels and some people do it on tiny levels. But just thinking about how at that moment of expansion, when you're at your largest bliss, capacity, whatever, you're just about to go all downhill. And it's kind of that strange, like, flow of life, whether it's learning and growing, like I'm talking about, and embracing old fears and things that came, or if it's expanding into the future as a creator and an artist, just really thinking about like, what is the nature of this flow and this wave and this expansion and contraction, and how do I get in alignment with it so that I can feel and do all the things, experience as much of it as I can.
Mm. It's one of the things I'm really starting to see is that we've almost convinced ourselves that we're not something that we are, like sort of like, so the whole thing with like men can't feel emotions, that's impossible. You're gonna feel them. You're gonna react to them. You can mask it and hold it down, but that is a reaction
Right.
to an emotion. So that whole concept is not real. And then even like how we talk about like I want to get into a line with this, we always are,
Yes.
just really more of so of us either fighting against the current or going with it, like as we're going down that slope into the valley of like our vibrational energy. I think a lot of times we try to swim against the current,
Mhm.
because we tell ourselves this is bad.
Yeah.
Like even when you were describing stepping away from this client, like you used the word I abandoned her.
Yeah, that's what it felt like.
Yeah, but it really wasn't,
Mhm.
because you saw what you were capable of and you saw what she needed. So you actually helped her. You were a step in her healing journey, what will hopefully be her healing journey,
Yeah.
you know? And I think, and I love the idea of the expansion and contraction being the same thing. And I think again, that's one of those things that we have to go through. Um, there's this object, and I've taught in fact I talked about them when we did the mushrooms, because this just blows my mind. But a white hole,
Yeah.
and there's a theory that our universe, the Big Bang, came from a white hole. It's a point of singularity where nothing can enter, but everything comes out. And it's the contradiction to a black hole, which nothing can escape and everything goes in. So in order for there to be life, we have to contract to that singularity and then move through, and then we can expand again.
Yeah. And that's my exact experience of life, right? It's sort of
Mm.
like birthing and it's you squeeze and it's uncomfortable and then you get to be the butterfly stage and then you go back into the squeeze stage, right? And there's I don't think there's any escaping that. I don't think you really wouldn't want to if you understood it, right? I think that's the thing.
Right,
Like
right.
I feel like I'm so close to like it finally clicking in my brain where I'm like, "Oh, I embrace this because I understand that without it, I wouldn't be evolving or becoming, or I wouldn't be able to feel whatever the answer is," right? Like really getting the necessity of that expansion and contraction and therefore embracing all parts of it.
Yes. Yes. And even just the whole idea of that wave, and even our emotional spectrum. A lot of times when we're going through the hard times, our instinct is to, try to find the silver lining. Like I was just thinking, a major surgery, like when I had my hip replaced, I couldn't do so much of what I used to do because of the pain. Then when the hip was replaced, the recovery freaking sucked. I hated life. I don't like being in hospitals. Like, they freaks me out. I don't know why, but um, and just being in the hospital for a few days, it was horrible, you know, and then the whole thing, but I'm not going to in those times sit there and say, "Oh, this is so amazing because I'm about to grow and heal and
Right.
get better." No, you embrace the suck. You know, that was something we used to say in the military, like all the time. Just embrace the suck. It's a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that I really like that with working out or like lifting weights, because you kind of have that same feeling where you're like, I can't do another rep. And then you're like, yes, I can, right? Or I can't run for another 10 minutes at this speed or whatever it is. And there's always more in you than you know. And sometimes just embracing that it's shitty and you're going through it is what gets you to 15 reps instead of 12 reps, right? Like there's something about that, leaning into it and knowing that it's going to hurt, but also knowing that the hurt is good kind of hurt. I think that's valuable. Being able to decipher in your life, what is the kind of hurt that's like harming me and making me shrivel up and be afraid? And what is a kind of hurt that's expanding me, and being able to recognize the difference so that I know where to put my boundaries.
Yeah, that just reminded me. I got to brag about one of the guys I'm working with. He's so cool. He's a Marine veteran, and we worked on a bunch of stuff, and then he was good, you know. So we stopped talking as much, you know, check-ins and stuff. Then he got into a relationship, and then called me and asked if we can, you know, talk again. And it was one of those instances. The relationship wasn't good. There was a lot of baggage that came in, and it was putting a divide between them. And he got to the point where he recognized that, like, all right, this pain is now bringing me backwards. I'm going back into old patterns. So they broke the relationship off, and again, now here's more, but there's hurt. But this
Yes.
is this is the hurt that I need in my life right now. You know, I
Yes.
need to go through this. And the moves that he made without any questions, without any like needing advice, he would have been able to do it like a year ago, you know? And I was just like, oh my God, this is so amazing watching the proof of the growth that he has had, you know,
Yeah.
and recognizing like this is the pain I need in my life right now, because look at already the change of where I'm going compared to where I was with this other type of pain.
Yes. Yeah. Beautifully said. And I think that's one of the strong things about life coaching, right? Teaching people how to be self-aware, how to be the watcher, how to understand what's going on for them so that they can make better choices.
Yeah. Yeah. Just yeah, recognizing those habits that we have, you know, and it's what drew me to it, and what made me fall in love with coaching is being able to look at my head and my brain like as its own culture, you know, taking that the anthropology part of school and like putting it into that, and seeing why I do what I do.
Mhm.
It all comes down to how I interpret the experiences. So again, we go back to that language that we use to describe our experiences.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's really interesting how unconscious we can be about ourselves,
Yeah.
and you don't even know that you don't know yourself, or you don't know you've been fooling yourself, right? And it happens to all of us. And as we've been going through this journey of trying to be more and more authentic, present our art to the world, find out what my gifts are that I really have to offer. I've been asking myself that question, like, who am I really? In what ways am I unconscious to my own self?
Mm.
And when this thing came up with this client this last week, I realized, you know what? I am a really highly sensitive person. And there's a couple different kinds of empathy. And like, it's very common for autistic people to not have the kind of empathy that's like the mental kind. Like, I see you crying. I know you're sad. but they have more of like the somatic empathy where they like feel another person's emotions and then they're not even sure if it's their emotions or the other person's, right? Like it's really an energetic thing. And I realized I am very much that way. And my whole life, I have pretended to be tougher than that and pretended that that's not true about me.
Yeah.
And this client brought it up because as I was grieving this decision, and the language in my head kept saying something like, toughen up. Why is this bothering you so much? Like, and I was beating myself out of my sensitivity,
Yep.
right? And I thought, oh, wait a second, like, time out. This is a time for me to recognize what's happening inside of me and that there is this part of me that I have been not fully conscious about, you know? And so then it had me ask two questions. One, how can I share this gift with the world, right? Being really sensitive. And two, how do I design my life honoring that truth about myself?
That's pretty, yeah. There's just so much like, and that's to like the miracle of meaning. You know what I mean? Like, because we ask that question, why am I feeling this way? You know, toughen up, suck it up, stop being a bitch. And we go into those habitual language patterns that we use that tear us down, as if you can tell yourself toughen up and then you won't feel it anymore.
Right.
You
Right.
know, like how many times, like how many times you actually do that, and then how many times you feel better by telling yourself just toughen up.
Right. Never.
Right. But when you find the meaning for something, and the meaning could be anything, like we get to make that up, but when we see the meaning for it, then that's when things start to like relax. So it's not about, again, like denying what we're feeling. We can't do that. You're going to feel it anyways. You
Right.
know, instead you're just putting fuel on that fire of feeling that way. I mean, I do that to myself all the freaking time.
Yeah. And I think it comes from a lot of cultural programming in our
Yeah.
childhoods, right? I can remember so many times my mom being so frustrated with me and just saying, like, why are you making such a big deal out of this? Like, you're making a mountain out of a molehill. Stop making a big, right? Those messages that whatever I was, the way that I was responding to a situation was too much,
Yeah.
right? I was feeling it too much. I was experiencing it too much, and I needed to shut it down to make it easier on everybody else around me.
Yep.
And
Yep.
that is a hard thread to unweave, right? I'm trying to like back it out of my psyche and unweave that thread of this picture of like, no, even if it makes people uncomfortable around me, I can experience whatever I'm experiencing.
Yeah. Yeah. But and because it becomes like it's so ingrained in us, it becomes part of our like unconscious programming. We don't even know. And like you said, like understanding why we're doing what we're doing, knowing ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, that's why I mean, it's so important to do it.
And it's fun.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
It
And you know
lives.
what's funny? Like you would never go to a gymnast or somebody that's like, you know, one of those crazy martial artists that's doing like the flips, like the capoeira and stuff like that. And the people that have such knowledge of how they move, what they can do, you never put them down for training like that. But when it comes to the mind, I want to know oh, that's stupid. You know what I mean? Like, why? I mean,
Yeah.
it's strengthening your mind so that you can use it in the same way, but mentally, emotionally, you know, yeah, it's just a weird thing.
Yeah, I'm beginning to think more and more, and this is like a weird out there conspiracy, like I will own it, that our country or our culture is set up to shame us and to keep us from doing that, right? From
Yeah.
becoming awake, from knowing ourselves, like intentionally. Because you look at other, cultures or, tribes in other places and you notice they all have a deep connection to self, a deep connection to like your birth song, right? Your birth note, right? That coming home to yourself. spending time in silence, going on walkabouts, right? Like, but in our culture, we've taken every little piece that connects us to ourselves away. And we've said, here, replace it with religion that we control and politics we control, right? And it's just, yeah, I'm feeling more and more the need of freedom from our current culture. And I don't know what that looks like. And honestly, it scares me to even say that that's coming up for me.
Dude, that goes deep, man, because I completely get that. And I 100% agree. I mean, like you said, like all these other cultures have all these rite of passages where you learn how to be a part, a man, a woman in your culture, connects you more with it. Connects you more with yourself. You learn about your ancestors, your history, where you come from, all that stuff. At age what, 5, we go into kindergarten, 6 or something, and all at that point, we're always told what to do. This is what you have to do. And that lasts all the way up to where, you know, whatever, 23, 24, graduate college. And then you go into the workforce. And that's why you have to go through all that education. So you go in the workforce where you always have a manager, somebody telling you what to do. And we just become a cog in a machine. And I really feel, I don't know much about this, but I know the Rockefellers, like he had a quote that said, we need a nation of workers, not a nation of thinkers. And he started investing heavily in the educational system. And I mean, even with the same thing with the pharmaceutical stuff, most of or I guess a lot of the textbooks or all the textbooks that they use, the Rockefellers got into and took out the natural medicines and put in the synthesized medicines that have incredibly horrible side effects.
Yeah. It's crazy when you think about what can you really trust, right? If you live in
Yeah.
a society that was not really built for your best interest.
Yeah, it was built to shore up. We're the foundation for those above us. You know, we keep the power in their hands. We keep the economy running, and all the money filters to them. And
Yeah. Yeah. You know what I was thinking about the other day? I tried to tell my husband, he didn't think it was as cool. I'll see if you think it's cool. Thinking about all of history and this moment that we got to be alive when we are the last generation before the internet and seeing the dawn of the next era of humanity, because things are crazy changing, right? Very fast, exponentially. But we still had summers where we ran around all day, and our parents locked us out of the house, and we went in
yeah,
ravines and jumped on train cars, and right, we had this wildness. And then we also see the world changing. Like, I think I'd pick this time again if I was picking out of a timeline. Yeah, it's kind of scary, but man, is it interesting. Like, what a great
yeah.
time to be alive.
I just saw a video. Sorry, my dad is dropping off a car for me. So my dog is going nuts because she sees him. But yeah, I just saw a video where, remember those commercials where they had like stars and it was always on the news like, hey, it's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your kids are? And that was just completely common for us. I mean, you go out, you don't have a cell phone, you have no communication. And there's like a rule of like when the street lights turn on, or my dad always had this whistle and we knew it was him. We could hear it like miles away, and that's when we come home.
Yeah, I saw some kind of meme posted about, kids of the 80s and 90s. And then it was asking people to share their experiences of summertime. And it was the coolest thread to read because, yeah, we did crazy stuff. And people, you got hurt, but you just sucked it up and put some dirt on it. It was fine.
Bro, yeah. Oh, Sandy's grandmother would do a turpentine.
Yeah.
Like if there was like a deep cut or something, you would like dip it in turpentine for some reason.
Isn't that funny?
It's weird, man. Yeah.
Yeah, I can remember my sister and I had this big hill next to our house, and we thought that if we ran fast enough and jumped, we would fly a little bit, like catch, like, oh, we were like
Uh-huh.
getting our flying powers. And like that's what we would spend our time doing, running up and down this hill trying to fly.
Yeah.
Like that's
Yeah.
cool. I'm so grateful for that childhood. And I'm grateful now, like all the stuff you and I are learning about the internet and how people connect and how humanity and business is changing and like fully leaning into this virtual world that exists now. And how cool to have both of those things. And we're
Yeah.
the only generation that can say that.
It's a good point. I never thought of it like that. That's a really good point.
It's kind of
Yeah.
makes it really seem like a fun time to be alive.
Yeah. I mean, me and you never would have met.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty interesting. I wonder if like historically there's going to be like a name for our generation like with that, you know?
I think so because I think, you know, if we're alive hundreds of years from now, if we don't kill ourselves as a species, this point in time will be a huge shift, right? It'll
Yeah.
be like the Industrial Revolution or something, right? It's going to be a huge shift in the way humanity operates. And I saw a great quote by Buckminster Fuller the other day that said, "Oh, it's a neck and neck race where you will either evolve or will become extinct." Like, and that actually made me feel kind of like at peace that it's not
Yeah.
going to go on just bad forever because we're at a crux right now where we either need to figure it out and get along or we will all die.
Yeah. I agree completely.
And that's unique to history. And so that's a cool thing to be alive for and see what's going to happen.
Yeah. Um, could we call a quick timeout real fast? All right. We'll I'll edit this one out. I'll be right back.
I'll pause. Okay, welcome
Cool.
back. So your dad dropped off a car for you?
Yeah, yeah. So I got to use it tonight to go to pool. Because Sandy goes too, but then she leaves really early. Since she's like up at like 4 in the morning, like a crazy person. Um, so yeah, and then he would just give me an update on my mom and stuff, who's at a rehab facility now, like learning how to walk again and stuff, all that
Wow.
stuff. Yeah,
Again, just what we were saying, right? Like, how old's your mom, in her 70s?
yeah,
So, it's never ending, right? The challenges, the growth, the learning, the all of it.
yeah, yeah. And it gets very, very hard sometimes, but it's a part of the process.
Yeah, I feel like the self-investigation in midlife is so necessary to not be afraid in the final chapters,
Hmm.
right? When we're young, it's like, oh, we're going to do this and we're pushing out, we're the bursting, star. And then midlife, I think a lot of people are like, wait, who the fuck am I? What's happening? What the fuck is this human experience? And we start to go inward. And then as our body diminishes, hopefully this inner thing gets stronger and stronger. And when it's time to let go of our bodies, we're ready. That's what I hope that this journey is like.
And it does make sense because I used to be very afraid of dying. You know,
Mhm.
even like in my darkest moments where I didn't want to be alive. I wasn't suicidal, but I just didn't want to be alive. I was still scared to death of dying. And now, after doing a lot of this self-reflection and actually learning about what I truly believe, I'm like, I don't believe in dying, because it's who I am, the consciousness part of me will continue.
Yeah. And that's the ultimate, contraction, right? Back to nothing. And then it's your first day of being something else. Your last day of being Keith in this body, I really believe is your first day of the beginning of another expansion. We
Mm,
don't know what, right? But, our moments are like this, our days, our years. Wouldn't our life just be one big and then another expansion into something new?
Dude, wow. Yeah. And what's that saying, like as above, so below, you know what I mean? But and like yeah, our days are like that, our our years are like, I mean, everything is like that. So why wouldn't the totality of our lives be the same way?
Right. And some huge cosmic scale that we can't even understand. Right.
Yeah.
Maybe you'll be a star next time. Maybe you'll be, or your energy is going to be part of something else, right? But we know that it's not disappearing because we know energy doesn't disappear.
And everything has a life cycle to it, you know. I mean, you got the water cycle, you got, I mean, a cycle of the rocks.
Mhm.
Uh, you know, I mean, we think of time, we've sort of corralled time into this meaning of what we can experience in our lifetime, you know, but time is this infinite thing, you know. So I mean, to rocks it might take millions of years for like El Capitan to like be regenerated going through back into the earth and everything. But even there's a carbon cycle, you know.
Wow.
When we die, we release the carbon that makes us up into back into the atmosphere, so we can have the carbon of dinosaurs or Genghis Khan, you know, somebody from history like in us right now being a part of us.
Yeah. Isn't
That's
that so
crazy,
cool?
man.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's so cool. Yeah. I love it. It's such an expansive view.
Yeah. And then just thinking about the energy. So imagine like, I mean, somebody in history, I mean, even taking like great like religious leaders, you know, like Buddha, Jesus, Muhammad, like we can have the energy of them still in us. That's crazy.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. And then maybe it's, like we talk about, it's the intention and awareness that either lets things be seen and known or remain hidden, right? So if your intention and awareness is on negativity, that's more right. But if it's more on your Muhammad consciousness or your Jesus
Yeah.
consciousness, then
And
that can.
and that is right there. And even like Sadhguru talks about like that brings us back to the Garden of Eden, where when they ate of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, for the first time in history, they had the choice to say this is bad or this is good. You know, so since our mind has a negativity bias built in, it's easy to go that way. But negativity is associated with the fight or flight response, you know, so it's a survival mechanism. And what that does, survival is about the self, you know, like so it draws our focus like inward towards us where everything else outside of us is a threat,
Yes.
you know. But the positive is an expansive, and like when you were talking about the expansion and the contraction, and another one, you know, negativity is good because it kept us alive for so many years as we were hunter gatherers, you know. But the one thing that was stronger or at least equal to in our survival was the community,
Yeah.
which is the expansive part. It's the connection. We can't see everybody else in the world as a threat.
Yes.
Imagine what we could do if we just had respect for each other. Imagine the technological advancements that can be made.
Yes. And when humans connect, they are so much more powerful, right?
Oh,
And that's why I love, because you and I both come from a Christian tradition, the verse that says, when two or more are gathered in my name, there I am. I
yeah.
love that verse since childhood. And while I wouldn't put it towards the Christian God anymore, I would say that is my experience in life. When people are gathered with an open heart, two or more, there is a power that exists there, right? And imagine if you could do that collectively of 100 people, 1,000 people, 1,000,000 people. The, the possibilities are endless. That's why when people say like, "Oh, like I have no hope for this world or this future," I'm like, it's actually not that hard. It's just a different direction than we're looking right now.
Yeah.
We just
Yeah.
kind of look different, sees things in a way we've never seen them, right?
Right. Right. It's just the opposite side of the same coin. I mean, you have the world that we have the societies that we have, so we can focus completely on the one side of the issues that come with it, or we can focus on the other side. Like, I am going to be open. I am not going to look at everybody in my life that comes at me, even if they're like yelling at me or whatever, as a threat to me, because they're not.
Yeah.
I'm going to save that for the people that actually are threat. Like if somebody comes up and punches me in the face, okay, you're a threat.
Yeah. What's funny about this is last night was the presidential debate, and my husband said, "Babe, I don't think I can watch this." Because we used to be people who were very aware and involved with news and politics and doing our best to make a difference. And both of us have sort of retreated from that because of our own mental wellness.
Yeah.
And I said, I'm not going to hear anything in that debate that's going to change my mind. Right. So it's only going to stir up negative emotions. I think that I would be better service to the world watching a comedy and laughing my ass off, meditating, feeling peace, feeling love, like whatever vibration of like positive vibrations, I can weight all the negativity that I know is out there happening tonight. That's more powerful than me watching this show on television, right? And letting it pull me down. And that's what I'm talking about, like the switch in my mind of how I'm making a difference in the world. And I sound like a crazy person to myself, but it's becoming more and more real to me.
Yeah. Yeah. I watched about 5 minutes of it, and then I started feeling horrible,
Right.
getting angry, just being like, what the fuck? Like this is where we're at. And then like, why am I doing that? Especially because I felt bad because it was like my smoking time too. I don't want to waste that feeling,
Nope.
because it is an expansive feeling for me. That's why like I've made it a part of this for me to smoke before we come on. And I think you're kind of doing the same
Yeah.
thing. And I just had so I was in Connecticut when I got my medical marijuana card. The the lady that brought me through the program told me this little trick that she has where she saves the last little bit of every strain that she gets. She saves the last little bit and puts it in one canister. So I had this little pill bottle for like 5 years now. And when I have less than a bowl left, I just dump it in there. So it's full with like 30 different strains. And it will send you flying. It's but one time my uncle's friend was over and I gave some to him. We were having like a family party. And like an hour later, he was like, dude, your nephew's weed just fucked me up, man. Like 'cause he was just gone. Yeah, I call it either Keith's Kush or Burning Rainbow because it had a little bit of everything.
I like that.
Yeah. And it makes me feel so open and accepting and full of like love and gratitude because that's where my focus goes. So I train my focus to go when I use it. So I don't want to watch something that is going to make me feel that way.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll comment on that, but first, I stick with something usually called lucid blue, like for my everyday type of stuff, because it's like high focus, high creativity, like it's sativa, so it's lots of energy,
Oh,
focus, creativity. And then I have like a little, I think it's MCT oil, is that what you call it? That's an indica for like nighttime. And I like to use that. I take it before bed and then I listen to a guided meditation. And then it's kind of like what do you call the dreams you can control?
the lucid dreams.
Yeah, it's kind of like lucid dreaming because I have all these chemicals, letting me go, and then this like guided, it's very fun. So those are the
That's
those are
so
the two that I
cool.
usually use in two different directions.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I love that, man. That's pretty
Yeah.
cool.
And a lot of people are finding medicine. You know, I was working with a client yesterday, and he's just professional, successful, one of those warriors on the front line working for reparations for Black people in our country. I mean, such a beautiful, strong warrior. And he was talking about weed and how he uses it and how it's a part of his recipe to be able to show up. And it was just beautiful, right? Because
Yeah.
people aren't using it to cover up and mask as much as they are using it as a scalpel to go in and find what they're looking for.
And it is such a beautiful tool. In fact, one of the things, I can't say one of the first things, I think it was domesticated about 35,000 years ago. They believe it was one of the first plants ever domesticated, but about 5,000 years ago, and I'm not going to remember the name, but there was a Chinese emperor that like dabbled in like surgeries and stuff, and what do they call it, like a pharmacopoeia or something like that, like where you write your like the plants and stuff that you use for medicine. And he would use cannabis to do um like small surgeries, like
Mm.
moving appendix or something like that. um and he even like recommended it for colicky babies. Like he had like this whole list of stuff that you would use cannabis for. um so just thinking about it being like a scalpel to go inward and kind of do that self work, and one of its first uses, or again, not maybe not first, but one of its uses was for surgeries. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. I read about this tribe that dose babies in their eye with a tiny bit of ayahuasca because to them in their culture, knowing your inner spiritual world and your spiritual guide and your ancestors and all that is of equal importance as knowing how to like go gather food in the field. So from the time you're a baby, you're trained. This is how you go on your spiritual journey. This is how you go on your physical journey. And both are cultivated. And I've never heard anything so beautiful in my life.
I was about to say that is just freaking beautiful, because that is a part of us that we have completely turned our back on, that spiritual side. And it's
Yes.
another part, again, like, I'm not a spiritual person. Well, bullshit, you are.
Right. You
You
can't
just
not.
deny that. Yeah, you just deny that part of yourself.
Yeah.
And how many of us don't feel connected with self? And I think that goes hand in hand.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that's, if that's something that you choose to do, you have to take a stand to sort of rebel against current culture if you're going to prioritize your spiritual journey equal to your physical journey, which
Yeah.
is what you and I are trying to do, right? Build lives and businesses that support us in equal spiritual and physical.
Yeah. And I truly believe that is the next evolutionary step that we're going to face. Or I don't know, maybe it's not. Maybe it's not an evolutionary step, but a healing step, a collective healing step that the human population needs to take to learn how to re-accept the spiritual side of self.
Yeah. But how do you think that could happen? I mean, I see it happening a lot with younger people, and there's, oldies like you and me clinging to the edge of this movement. But there's also a lot of people who are, I'll bring it back to the reptilian brain. So when you're in your reptile brain, you cannot think. Logic is not accessible to you. Fight, flight, fawn, freeze. That's it. And yet so many people are living there permanently.
Yes.
See these people on the internet getting crazy angry over a meme, and you're like, oh my gosh, that reptile brain is really active. So how do we get enough safety in the world so that people come into their cortex and they don't have to stay in that survival part of their brain? Because that's what's necessary if we're talking about like a big evolution for humanity.
And I think like my mind automatically goes to my whole thing about like never feeling that strong desire to help somebody. Because I believe like I can advise, guide, whatever you want to call it, but the work can only be done by the person. So there's really nothing I could do to help like in that way. I think it's like the quote from Jane Goodall, if you want to change someone's mind, you have to touch their heart. And so many times since I've been doing this, people have looked at me like I'm a pushover. Um, I'm just like woo woo, whatever, you know, they downplay what I'm doing. But what I've noticed over time is that those same people are starting to do things
Mm.
that are kind of the same thing. They're opening up more, you know. And I think that there's going to be people that never do it, you
Mhm.
know, because of a belief system that they have that is too scary for them to let go of, which drives that anger because now your disbelief in something I believe is now a threat to me because if you don't believe it, maybe there's cracks in what I'm believing here. Maybe there's something's not right and I can't accept that. It's too painful. And I really believe the best way to do it is to live the example, you know, and I go back to, you know, our past growing up in Christianity. I feel closer to God now than I ever did when I was in church. The verses that talk about they have ears to hear, don't hear, they have eyes to see and don't see, like, and then when it talks about like the scales falling off their eyes and all that, like I feel that I connect with that now,
Yeah.
you know, because it all comes down to this for me. Like I believe it was Paul that said, all the law, so all the commandments that people run to in the Bible to hate on others. He said, all the law is summed up in one thing: love thy neighbor as thyself. And then in James, it talks about by their fruits ye shall know them. And in Galatians, it gives you the fruit of the Spirit, and it's love, joy, peace, long suffering, you know. So it's living those things. And I think the more we live them for ourselves, the more that vibration spreads outward. And regardless of what we say, it will impact other people. Other people will be affected by that energy.
Yeah. You know, you made me think that would be a really interesting I don't even know what to call it, like course, exploration, exploratory patron group, right? Where it's based on the fruit of the spirit, but not from a Christian perspective. Because you're right, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, gentleness, and self-control. Like those are all beautiful attributes. And thinking about how to live into those and how to model those to other people would be a beautiful exploration.
And that's what going inward and understanding how my mind works helped me. Because now I don't know what was a couple, I mean, maybe 6 months ago now, me and Sandy were driving and a guy ran a red light, cut us off, and we almost T-boned him. And then, you know, luckily there was no accident. And then he slammed on his brakes and he looked at me and gave me the finger. Like it was my fault. I can see now, like, okay, he's reactive. He's pissed, he's angry, he's in a rush to the point where he doesn't care about his own physical safety or anybody else's. So he's reactive. He is in that reptilian brain. And you know what I mean? And it helps me again, it's me putting a meaning on it.
Yeah.
I could put a meaning on, oh, he's an asshole. Maybe it's true, but there's a reason why he is. And I'm seeing the reason. or recognizing that there is a reason, and then that keeps me away from that reactive reptilian brain and living more through my own responsibility.
Yes.
And it keeps me in that centered place of love first.
Yes. I'm laughing because I had a situation with someone where I had to build a firm boundary this week. I built it, I communicated it, they accepted it, but then like 2 or 3 days later, I got a long email that was definitely not accepting it. And I spent like 3 hours crafting the best, most solid 5 paragraphs back. And you know what? I was going to change their worldview forever with my 5 paragraphs. And then I caught myself and I realized what I was doing, right? Spending all this effort and time trying to change the mind of someone who's in their reptile brain and they can't even access their cortex to think about what I'm saying. I deleted it all and said, doesn't sound like it's going to work out between us right now.
Hmm.
One sentence, right? I don't need to engage like that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because it would have been 2 reptile brains going back and forth. My reptile, their reptile, my reptile, and that's not going to get us anywhere.
Right. Right. But so many times it's what we do, like we're like, "Oh, I'm like you said, I'm going to change their world." And it never happens. Instead, what we just do is get and their argument back, because especially like I remember when me and Sandy used to argue like constantly. When she was saying her piece, I wasn't listening to her. I was crafting my response. And many times, like she'd be going through, and I'd be like, oh no, she's wrong with that. I'm going to get that. But then here she says something else, and I completely forget about this, and I'm talking about this. So our fight would start on over here, and we end up over here not knowing what we started fighting about.
Yep.
It just keeps switching by like a degree.
Mm-hmm.
And instead, you just didn't give that person a choice to accept your boundary or not. It wasn't their boundary to accept. You just enacted it.
Right. And when they didn't respect it, a result was saying like, okay, goodbye then. Right.
Yeah.
I didn't want that to be the result. I wanted to change them.
Yeah.
And I think about how much time I've spent in my life thinking that I could prove somebody wrong. It's funny, sometimes my husband and I will start to go down that road, like bicker, bicker, bicker. And then he'll say, as a joke, he'll say, like, that's it. I'm not going to stop fighting with you till you admit you're stupid.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
basically that's what we're doing to each other, right? And we just call it
Right.
out, we'll have a little laugh and go, okay, like let's walk away and diffuse the situation for right now. Because
Right.
basically that's what we're in it for at that point, right? When you get locked in. So you're like, all
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. I heard this thing once. I did a video on it, and yeah, a lot of people didn't agree with it, but it was a question of, is it more important to be right or to show love? And it was the context was a husband and wife, and this was part of my coaching course. They showed this video, and they were on the verge of splitting up. And when they did an interview with them 2 years after this whole intervention took place, um, they had a better relationship than they ever had, and it was all about the husband not, no matter what the wife said, it was about him not reacting to be right, to
Yeah.
allow her to feel what she feels, to allow her to say what she says. Because when you have a relationship, you communicate verbally, but you also communicate nonverbally even more so. So when changes take place, that nonverbal communication, even when they understand the changes, me and Sandy got into an argument, and I it was the first time I was ever dialed in, and I was being respectful. I was being loving. I wasn't getting angry, nothing. And she's like, what are you doing to me? You're trying to make me feel like I'm insane. She was like losing it. And I just walked away. I like went for a walk around the neighborhood and stuff. And she's like, I don't know what that was. Like, I started freaking out thinking you were playing mind games with me,
Yeah.
so it, when you set a boundary, especially with somebody that you've been dealing with, their natural instinct is going to be to test that,
Mhm.
because they're used to this style of communication, yeah, it's nothing to get mad about, just to
Mm-mm.
hold firm to that decision, that boundary.
Right, because it's for you,
Yeah.
right? To be the best version of myself, this is what I need or don't need. And if you can't do that, that's fine, right? No judgment, but I can't change that because I'm committed to me.
And that's the thing. I think trying to be the best version of ourselves is how we can best help all of humanity,
Yeah.
because a lot of times I think we can mistake that with almost like, everything's for me. Remember like when COVID first started and for some reason everybody thought their butts were going to blow up, so there was like no toilet paper anywhere, like that was just hoarding. That was for self, but I want to live because it's going to make me feel amazing. But again, it's that high vibration life that will expand outward.
Yeah. I've been thinking of it more and more like we kind of talked about this last week. Spirit or source or whatever it is wants to be expressed through me in my work, in my art, in my hobbies, in my marriage. And the only way it can do that is if I am really healthy and boundaried up and dedicated to being me. So it's not selfish because I'm not doing it for me, really. I'm doing it so that there's more God in the world. Right. And
Yeah.
like thinking about that has made it easier for me, particularly as I'm wrestling social media and how I want to show up and wrestling, accepting people loving me or liking me. Right. And then flipping the narrative a little bit and going like, oh, that's not necessarily me they're liking. It's source or God. It's presence that they're feeling and seeing. And that made that piece of it a little bit easier too. So I've sort of been thinking about that, like asking myself, how can I become as clear or transparent as possible so that this thing, whatever it is, can shine through me more?
Yeah. I struggle with that just because of what I've learned about pride growing up. And I was thinking about this last night. Like, I don't think I fully understand what is pride and what is the bad pride versus what is the good pride,
Yeah.
because I want to be good because it makes me feel amazing. So
Yeah.
that's about self, but it's also helpful externally. It can diffuse a situation. Like if somebody cuts me off and gives me the finger instead of me ramming my car into them, you know, um, I laugh and it's gone, and then I'm not at the next person that I get frustrated with or something, I'm not going off on them and becoming that very person, that
Mhm.
did it to me. So is that bad or good that makes me feel amazing? Because that the old part of my brain's like, well, that's bad. That's pride. It's for self. So you're evil, you
Right.
know?
So you're probably purposely keeping yourself from feeling good about yourself because you have
Yeah, you
an idea
can't.
that's prideful. Right.
And I never knew. Like, I mean, it goes deep. Like I can't feel good about myself. I placed in the top 5 in a national writing competition. If you ask me like do I think I can write? No, I suck. Like so even with proof of talent that or work or whatever, I suck. I have to think that because if I think I'm good at anything, even something that I practice constantly, if I get good, I can't say I'm good because then that's pride and it's evil.
What would you like to believe about pride?
That that there's a paradox that comes with selfishness.
Mm.
there's the good self and there's the bad self, the need to hoard, that's bad. The need to think that I'm the greatest, that's that's bad. What I would like to think about pride is that it's a very healthy, confidence building, I mean, both physically and mentally healthy thing to do, to recognize the good stuff that we do just as easily as we recognize all the bad stuff that we do. So that I can say, you know what, I wrote something, it was pretty damn good. I like that. Not I'm the greatest in the world, but just that was good.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I'm wondering if maybe it kind of has to do with what we were talking about, the two different parts of your brain. Is when pride exists more in the reptile brain, it's comparative, and really what it is fear, right? Pride
Yeah.
covers up. I have to be better than you. I have to build a big wall of, I'm the best, which is it shuts people out.
Yeah.
Versus more pride of like the thinking brain, which is like, I'm good and bad. I'm just good. I just know I feel wonderful. Right. More up here. Or maybe it's the heart and the brain, like however you think about things, but it does seem like there's two different experiences of pride and we're calling it the same word, which is really confusing. Going back to your word thing, right? Like we need two words
Yeah.
for this.
Dude, that is like genius to me. Like the intention behind the word, so it's like when pride comes from fear, that's why you're gonna hoard toilet paper or
Yeah.
money or whatever it is,
Or tell gay people they can't be married or they can't do right because you're trying to control all of this. It's
yeah,
I'm better than you. I know how you should live, right?
yeah. But when it comes from that humble place, like I am, yeah, good and bad, but that came out pretty cool. I'm proud of that. Like that, wow, that's pretty cool, man. I've never thought of it like that pride that stems from a fear of, so if somebody tells me like I'm not as good as I think, I have to go off on them and call it and rip them down and stuff, because it's puts a crack in that belief system. If I'm not perfect, if I'm not the greatest, then I'm nothing.
Hmm. Yeah. I think that might be a fun practice. I know the last couple of weeks we've been thinking about life is art, and I think that's been a good practice, but it might be fun for the next week to think about pride a little bit and like how can I feel, come back next week and tell our listeners and they can do it too. Like, what am I proud of that I did this week? Like, when did I allow myself to experience pride in the good sense?
Yeah. Yeah, and what that feeling is.
That's what I mean. Because to
Yeah,
me,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
thinking, to me, it feels like self acknowledgement.
Yeah, it has a soft sense to me, like a
Hmm.
soft feel to me. You know,
Hmm.
like like last night I had the air condition rocking and just the quilt and everything. I was so freaking comfortable, man. Like that feeling,
Yes.
you know. Whereas the other version of like I am so good, and for me, I can only relate it back to that was how I felt as a Christian. I have the truth. I am better. Even though I would say all the right things, like, Jesus died for us all and stuff, but again, then yelling about how people are going to hell because they're so wicked, that just creates an other and it puts me above them.
Yeah.
And it never felt good.
Hmm. Yeah. I think you're right. I think that my experience of pride in the past has been around Christianity, around my looks, but the opposite of conceit is doubt, right? So I
Mhm.
might have gone into parties or situations and thought like I'm the prettiest person here, but that's not really what I believed about myself,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And but it came up in that, And then, like we've talked about, like arguing and wanting to be right and prove people wrong. I had a lot of that going on a lot in my younger years. But yeah, now when I feel healthy pride, it feels like floating down a river, right? It feels soft. It feels
Yeah,
part of the flow. It feels open. Like, oh, I reached full expansion. Yay.
yeah,
Right?
yeah, yeah,
It's a different, yeah, I don't really know how to describe it yet either, but it'd be fun to
yeah.
keep awareness around it for the week.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna do that because even when you were describing that, like going into a party, like and thinking something about yourself that you really didn't believe about yourself. So it was almost like you want everybody else to think that you're the prettiest one there.
Right.
So like in a way, pride is about like that validation because
Yes.
you don't believe it yourself.
Yes.
Wow, that's pretty cool, man.
Right, but pride from the heart, or this other thing we're talking about, does not need validation.
Right,
They're like,
right.
that's just fucking cool. I did it. I love it. Like you're all filled up with self. It doesn't matter what anybody else thinks at all.
Yeah, yeah. Like I remember like my favorite pool shot I ever made. I was playing 9 balls, so you got to go in order 1, 2, 3, all the way up to 9, right? And the girl I was playing made this amazing shot, and so the cue ball was up table, the one ball was like right by the side pocket, and there was another ball blocking me. I could not get to it, so I had to bank it, or kick it. So I hit the cue ball down table with a little bit of spin on it, went on this side of the two ball, came out on the other side of the two ball, and went up and just knocked the one and it went in. Right now, it's what I intended. Everything just lined up for me because I would not be able to do that shot again if my life depended on it. But I just started laughing. I was like, that was such an awesome shot, you know? So I was like proud of that shot, but not, it didn't mean that I was the greatest pool player in the world.
And nobody could have taken that feeling away from you, even if somebody was like, no, your shot was stupid.
Oh,
Like,
yeah. Yeah. Because like,
you felt it. Like,
even my friends were like, I was like, dude, you got so lucky. And I'm like, yeah, but it was still cool, man. Like it
right.
was still really good. Yeah. So they can't diminish it. That's really interesting. That's gonna be a pretty good exploration, man.
Yeah, it feels to me kind of like, when you celebrate a tree or a flower, or, right, like celebrating yourself is just another piece of creation that sometimes gets it really right.
Yeah.
It's like sometimes the flower blooms perfectly, or you get the best blueberry, right?
Yeah. Why I wonder why that like why do we like is it acceptable to celebrate everything and everyone except ourselves?
Yeah.
I mean, the odds of us just being alive are like 1 in 1 trillion. There's more possible people that could be alive that won't be than will ever be alive in all of human history. But we don't celebrate ourselves. We tear ourselves down.
Yeah. And I think part of that is like we talk about the negativity bias and evolution and where we're at in that stage. And part of it is that it's very powerful to celebrate yourself. And our society hasn't, in my opinion, wanted us to have access to that kind of power. They want us to have the other kind, right? Where, oh, I bought a new car and I have a house and I have all this stuff, so I must be better than everybody else because I am good at capitalism.
And I'm good at doing the same routine thing every day of my life, for 40 something years so that I can then retire at 65 or 70 and then start living, then start doing stuff I want to do.
Yeah. I love that story about the fisherman, and the guy comes up and says, "What are you doing sitting on the beach? Like, you could catch more fish." And he says, "Well, why would I want to catch more fish?" And he says, "Well, so that you have like a stockpile and you don't have to work in the future." And he's like, "I'm not working right now. I'm like sitting on the beach. What are you talking? Like, literally, what you're planning is what I'm doing." Right? It's written better than that, but that's the point, right? The now is all you have. So enjoy it.
Yeah. And that's what, I mean, that's what we evolved. That's how we've lived the majority of human existence. You know, hunter-gatherers worked on average about 4 hours a day. And then the rest of the time was socialization, maintenance, like, I mean, just living and just experiencing life. But it's all reversed now.
Yeah, some places are starting to, make a 4-day work week, but you still get paid the most, right? Starting to ease off of that idea, because the truth is, with technology, everybody doesn't need to work 40 hours to afford food in a home. So it's changing that mindset about what is human worth, and is it what you do for a living?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
All right, I like that homework assignment for the week. So we're going to think about pride and
Sounds
feel
good, man. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. I'm turning off the recording.
Thank you so much for joining us. We are so grateful for all of our listeners. Please support us in doing what we love. It's as simple as hitting that like or subscribe button. It would really mean a lot to us. Thanks, guys, and we'll see you next week.